that's the key, is you have to be doing what you're meant to, your purpose in life.
Yes.
Even if your purpose is not bringing you in money and you're working 40, 50 hours a week, you still have to find time to do whatever that purpose is.
Yes.
That purpose work, you got to do that, because that's what's going to keep you going and feeling like you're growing and you're getting, closer to your goal in life, which is fulfilling that purpose.
Hey, sober people and sober adjacent people. Welcome to I Have 12 Questions. I'm Amanda Patton, your host, the leading expert on nothing. However, I am in recovery and I love it so much so that I launched this podcast where we get to talk to people who are trudging the road to happy freaking destiny across all the different ways that people get there. So while this is definitely through the lens of recovery and sobriety, the stories and the themes that we'll be covering are universally human. So love, loss, grief, excitement, parenting, outside issues, purpose, God stuff, whatever. In the words of the great Ted Lasso by way of Walt Whitman, I want to be curious, not judgmental. So like I said, we'll be talking to people in recovery. We're going to be talking to experts and practitioners who help those people along their path in recovery. And we're just really excited to hear people tell their stories and to be inspired by them and to create a community of support for everybody in recovery and people who know and love people who struggle with addiction issues and whatnot. So anyways, we're so glad you're here and thanks for listening. Hey listeners, just a quick disclaimer before we get into the interview. The views and opinions expressed by those interviewed on I Have 12 Questions or myself are just opinions and our own personal experiences. We are not doctors or therapists or psychiatrists. So none of the recommendations or opinions expressed should be considered medical or psychological advice. There may be adult language contained in some of these episodes, as well as triggers around conversations regarding rape, sexual abuse, drug and alcohol usage, depression, anxiety, suicidal ideation, and many other topics that will come up when we are discussing addiction and recovery from addiction. So please use discretion. This podcast is not for everybody. Thank you. So before we get started, I just want to brag on Tash a little bit. And I wrote out little notes because there was so much that I had to say. But we know each other through professional projects. And I remember when I first met you and I was really impressed by you. Just beyond like the obvious of being really smart and beautiful and all of those things, you have this energy about you that's like kind and regal, but also like I wouldn't want to mess with you.
Like, when is that part going to come in?
Yeah, it's really weird. It's like off-putting almost because it's like, okay, there's this very but then you just know you don't even have to say it or show it. You just have I had a knowing that like this is not someone that you want to mess with. And it's just like a quiet strength, but it's shrouded in, calmness and kindness and everything else. So, and you're so positive. You're so damn positive that it used to get on my last nerve when we worked together because I'm like, you know how I am. I get worked up really easily about pretty much everything. And I have a pretty short fuse. And so we would be talking about different things and I'd be just saying, blah, 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 can you believe blah, and you're just like smiling and talking, be like, we're going to work it out. It's going to be okay. Like we're going to make it better, and all this. And it's a trait that I admire about you so much. And I've always wanted to know kind of where you get it from. So I hope we're going to get into that today.
Yeah. Thank you.
And there's that saying of like pressure either, busts pipes or makes diamonds. And so I assure our audience we're dealing with a diamond today. And I want to hear about it. I feel like I know bits and pieces of your story just from us catching up, but we were always doing work stuff. So we didn't really have a lot of time. So welcome to the show again. And thank you for agreeing to do this. I have no idea what I'm doing.
About this. Thank you.
I'm excited. So I'm just going to start with kind of an easy question. I hope. Who was your biggest influence and why?
Yeah, that's a really good question because I don't think that there's just one person
Yeah.
that has influenced me, especially on this journey. I'm actually going to have to say my family as a collective, both sides, mom
Mm-hmm.
and dad, but not in a way that most would probably think. That they weren't like, oh yeah, you shouldn't drink. Like it's not good for you. They were like, let's drink, let's be addicted to it. So,
Of course.
of course, right? So I have, great relatives, great aunts and uncles and cousins and even, family members closer than that who have struggled with alcoholism and addiction for years. And that's what I saw growing up.
Right.
Ever since I was a child, going to the family friend's house and it was, a party of nothing but drinking and drunkenness. And it was fun, right? But I didn't realize the impact that it would have on me as an adult and how
Right.
I would mimic and mirror that behavior because I thought that that was fun. And that was what fun meant. So I would say, the family, they've just been my biggest influence to kind of say, no, I'm not doing this anymore. I don't want to move in that same direction. I have a close family member who is addicted to alcohol and is wheelchair bound now and continues to drink and partake. And actually I forgot about that other one too, right? So it's like, seeing that influenced me, hugely, greatly, because I said, no, like there's no way that I can be 50 something, 60 something, or ever wheelchair bound because of a decision that I can control. And I'm going to say, yeah, I know many people say, oh, I can't control it. I can't control the addiction. I can speak for everyone. Right.
Yes. Okay. Well, that's good. Cause my next question, cause I always think of I think of a habit as something that you quit once you start seeing the negative consequences. And a lot of people are like that. They see negative consequences. They're like, I'm not doing this anymore. And they quit. Whereas an addiction is like, you can have wheelchairs and prisons and crash cars and like broken families. You can have all kinds of stuff laid out in front of you and it's still not enough. And so everyone is so different. And there are problem drinkers. There are alcoholics and addicts. It's a spectrum, right? Just like everything else in the whole wide world. But my next question is, what led to the decision for you to quit drinking? I don't know, was there an impetus? Was there a moment or a day? Or was it just sort of, what was that moment for you? Because a lot of people talk about rock bottom, but a lot of people don't have to get there, right? And so what led up to that, I guess, for you?
Yeah, so for me, it was rock bottom. And my rock bottom might be different than someone else's rock bottom, right? But for me, I feel like that, okay, this is it. This is rock bottom and I can't do this anymore. So I moved to Orlando right after college, like 2 days after college. I packed up my Daewoo at the time. I found my roommate on Craigslist and I said, I literally did. I moved in with her and her cat. And I said, I get out of Tuscaloosa, Alabama. It's too close-minded. I have to leave here. I'm just going to go. And I transferred to a sporting goods company that I was working with at the time. And I was making $8 an hour as a manager, right? Mm-hmm. So I move in with this lady and her cat, and I know nobody in Orlando. So I think this is what started this like downhill spiraling out of control cycle. Yeah. Because I didn't know anybody. I was depressed. I was eating ramen noodles. Like, I'm not going to lie. I had some ramen noodles today, but that was by choice. Like, I couldn't afford nice dinner, right? But I had some ramen noodles, right? But then I didn't have a choice. Like, that's what I had to eat. And so I was just so depressed. And then I was also coming out because living in Alabama, I just felt like I couldn't come out. I couldn't be my true self. So everyone, I'm a lesbian. Okay. I moved to Orlando and I was going through this phase of like, I don't know if I'm like a feminine woman, like lesbian or like more of a masculine or in between. So I was like confused about that. So I would just always go to the club because I felt like that's the place that I can be safe at. It was Pulse nightclub, Parliament
wow.
House. Oh yeah. And that's where I felt safe. But going there, I felt safe being there, just being myself, but that also led me to like just drinking because I was just trying to like drink away my depression. And from that point, I just always felt like, okay, when I go out, this is what I have to do. Like in order for me to meet people, because I knew in order for me to meet people, I've got to drink. I've got to buy people drinks without any money I don't know how I was doing that. I just like, I have to do it. And that continued for so many years. And I was married at one point. I was physically abusive in that marriage because of drinking.
To a man or another woman?
A woman.
Okay.
Yeah. So, I would drink and black out and then try to drive my car. They would try to stop me from driving my car. I would fight them. I was just out of control, right? And in 2018, 2018, I was in Lebanon and I was visiting someone I was dating at the time. And it was New Year's and I went to a party and I just blacked out. And again, that same anger and terrible like behavior came out. And it was at that point that I said, and then I just kind of ruined that relationship. And that was the thing. I kept on ruining relationships because nobody wants to hang out with, someone like that. So I lost so many friendships, and that was on New Year's. So I went back home maybe a couple days later. And on January 6th, 2018, I was like, I had drank a Corona. It was like 11 o'clock in the morning. And I drank a Corona. And I said, oh my God, what am I doing? Like, you just did this whole thing on New Year's and you're sitting here. You're like, what? I don't even like beer. Like, why am I doing this? So at that moment, I said, absolutely not. I can't do this anymore. And I opened up my phone and downloaded the AA app and found a meeting like an hour later. And I walked in there and can I curse on here?
Yeah.
I was scared shitless. Like the stories that everyone was sharing, like I hadn't gotten to that point where like bringing wine to work and stuff like that. I was like, ooh, like, so I was scared. And like, I was like, no, like, I never want to be in that place. So ever since then, that was like the day for me is going into that meeting. I only went to one meeting and got my book. And ever since then, I've been sober.
That's incredible. And it's so relatable, of like those moments of like, what am I doing? I don't even like beer. I don't even like these people. I don't even like this, why, or whatever. And it's just this compulsion or habit or, almost like you don't know what else to do. And it's miserable, but you don't know what it's going to be to try to do something different. So you just keep doing that thing. It's crazy to me that you only went to that one meeting though. Like I'll ask you about it probably a little bit because I want to know. Well, I have more like I guess contextual questions, but which is this next one. Tell me some of the things, or maybe one thing that you do on a daily basis to like stay on this path. Because for me, I need structure. I need meetings. I need fellowship or whatever. I have a lot of little rituals here and there. Some are related to recovery. Some aren't, some are more spiritual in nature, but what are the things you do on a daily basis to just make sure that you stay on the beam, as we say?
That's a great question. There are so many, but the number one thing that I do is I think about my why. Why am I doing this? Because I do not want to be like those relatives who are handicapped and wheelchair bound. I know that I'm going to be a millionaire. Like it's inevitable. It's going to happen.
I can see that.
And I can't do that with drinking away my life. I can't do it. I can't retire my mom. I can't move them into a house that they don't have to pay for. I have kind of like this weight on me that if I drink and if I continue to do that to myself, it's just, I'm literally going to bury myself in the ground. Like there's absolutely no way I can go back to that because of all of these things that I have to look forward to.
Yes.
In my future. So that's what I keep in mind whenever it's been 5 years now. So like, even when I go out now, I don't have like cravings or anything like that. Early on, that first year was hard.
Yeah.
And I can't tell why, but now it's, sometimes like if I have a really rough day at work and I'm like, man, a glass of wine would be nice. I go to that thought of like, absolutely not. Like you've come this far. Why are you going to destroy that and mess it up now?
I love that.
That's kind of what I keep in mind daily.
I love that. Well, it's different for everybody. Like we've talked about, that's one of the reasons I started this podcast, because there are 7 ways to Sunday. There are a million ways to get sober. People do different things and change all kinds of behaviors, not just drinking and using, but like a million, all different things. And what works for me isn't going to work for you and vice versa. And that's great. And that's perfect. And that's how we should be. We're a very diverse collection of people and personalities. But like for me, when I would get the craving or the compulsion or whatever it was to do something that I knew was bad, intellectually, I understood that. But my mind would always just play me the highlight reel of like, but remember, this was fun and that. And so it was like that movie of like the fun without really like playing the tape all the way to the end of like, yeah, but then what, right? What happens after that? And I could not, there was no time between the thought and the action. It was just sort of like the thought and then drink in hand, right? And so I love talking to people who can just like focus on why, and have that recall 5 years ago of like, yeah, no, I don't want to do that. I have all these people depending on me. I'm destined for amazing things. And you cannot function on all cylinders if you're out there, wreaking havoc and drinking and doing all the stuff that we were doing. So I admire, like I said, I admire you. You know that.
Thank you. And same to you.
Thank you. Well,
you know what I'll add to that?
Please.
Is that I did leave out that I tried a lot of times to stop drinking.
Yes.
This wasn't like my first time trying and, then that's it. No. That year before that, every time I had one of those episodes where I was out of control, I woke up, obviously we wake up the next day like, oh shoot, I never want to do that again. And I tried and I'm like, I'm going to give myself 30 days. I'm not going to do it. And then the people, it's the people around you, if they're not on board with it, they're going to influence you to do things that you shouldn't do. Yeah. So that was one thing I had to realize. So I need to, if I'm feeling weak, I do not need to go out with those people. Right. So I tried many times, 30 days. I think I made it 30 days one time and then like fell into something or went out with the wrong people again, and so I don't want that to come across like I just did a one and done thing. No, this was
okay, good.
Yeah.
It makes me feel better because I was like so rebellious and stubborn and I just thought I would figure it out. I was like, no, I refuse. There's no obstacle I've ever met that I couldn't overcome. And I'll be damned if I'm going to be beat by this thing. So I will figure it out and I'm going to keep trying if it kills me. And it literally almost did. But like I got to do jail and rehab and all kinds of fun adventures to try to really figure out what that looked like. But like you're saying, I would stop for a couple of weeks or 30 days. I would feel so much better, and then you're like, oh, it'll be fine. Or somebody's birthday, or you start dating someone, or you're in a social situation. And, that's when I started to realize like it has very little to do with drugs and alcohol. And it has a lot to do with like, sometimes I just don't know how to cope with people, places, things, situations. And instead of trying to learn those skills, it's easier, it was at the time to just check out, I don't want to deal with this. So I'm just going to drink myself into oblivion and cause a bunch of destruction, you know? So when's the last time, and I've asked this question before of other guests and I really like it, but I like to learn this because I want to hear people's real world examples. But like, when's the last time you had to take the high road in a situation and practice humility where you really, really didn't want to, but you did anyway? And kind of, you know, how did you do it?
Yeah. So, I think that, okay. So this past fall, I went to Guadalajara, Mexico.
Yes, I saw the videos.
Yes, yes. So I went to Tequila, Mexico, like Tequila, Mexico, for someone who is sober, who's quit, right? But I did say, you know, I said, you know, I'm going to Tequila. This is probably the only time I'm going to go there. I'm just going to stick my tongue in the little cup just to say, okay, I've tasted it, right? And I did that, and I was like, this is awful. Like, how did I even like to drink this back in the day, right? But I was around a tour group of people that were out of control. Like, they were having a blast, right? And there were times where they were like, I could have, if I didn't have the control and the discipline that I had, I could have been right there with them. I could have said, F it, like, yeah, give me a shot. We're going down, let's do this. But then I could have also stepped in and said, like, you guys are ridiculous. Like, what are you doing? Why are you so drunk? Et cetera, et cetera.
Right.
But I resisted. I took that high road and humbled myself because I was once there. Like, I was once that person, right? And so and they may be able to handle it. Like, they might not have a problem like I did. So, like, you know, no judgment. Like, it was all fun. We had an amazing time. I remained sober. I probably did get tipsy from that one little tongue in the cup thing, but
your body was like, whoa, we don't know what to do with that.
Right. But that kind of solidified it for me too. Like, even more, like, this isn't for me. Like, what are you doing? But I don't recommend that. You know, I don't recommend what I did at all. It was just something that, I don't know, I just felt like I'm in Tequila. But for some, that, you know, that might trigger that to restart, you know, for them.
Yeah, but you go ahead.
No, it didn't for me.
Yeah. I think, though, too, the humility that we have to have in those moments of like, yeah, I understand that things are different for me when I partake. Yep. And for me, and I talk about this all the time with people that I know in recovery, of like, when the springtime rolls around and the weather's perfect and it's beautiful and people are on the lake, people are sitting on patios drinking, that's one of the hardest, for whatever reason, to this day, 9+ years into recovery, like, that still does something to my brain. And I feel my brain light up a little bit, like, God, that was so fun. It was so free and so fun. And it was at the beginning of the drinking where it was still fun, right? Like, early in the day or early in the evening before shit went off the rails. And so, of course, my brain wants to hang out there and be like, yeah, remember, it was so fun. You can go have a beer on a patio. Who cares? But I have to humble myself and remember, too, like you were just saying, those people will just go about their day, go home, go to bed, be normal people. I will, like, end up in another country after a 3-day bender. Like, I have done that before, and it is not funny. And, you know, so, but I have to remember my experience and not romance the drink, you know, via other people's, you know, stuff. But it's hard sometimes. And I'm not going to lie, there are days when I miss it, or maybe I feel a little bit sorry for myself that I don't get to just let loose, because those videos in Mexico, I loved them. But like, I know the crew you were talking about, they were dancing and going crazy, and they were getting like drunk. And that's how I like to drink. Right? It's over. Like, we're doing it until somebody passes out or goes to jail or whatever. And so when I see that, seeing people in social situations drink like normal, regular, you know, a drink with dinner or whatever, doesn't bother me one bit, because I never drink like that. I don't care to drink like that, whatever. But when I see people going for it, that that wakes up my demons a little bit sometimes. Like, I remember, because I'm and I think you're the same way. You're so serious and so driven, and you're so hard on yourself, and it's like work, 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 work. And you have all this weight on your shoulders. And sometimes we need to blow off steam. We need to, and for me, drinking was that. It was to turn my brain off and to stop worrying about all this stuff and to just not give a shit. You know what I mean? And so I think one of the things, that's one of the questions like I have for you too, is like, how do you have fun now? When you need to blow off steam, or you've worked too much and you need a break. Because you're the type of person, even if you go on vacation, you're like making a vlog, right? It's a work project. Everything is work. You're always hustling. And I love that about you, but also, how do you have fun? How do you unplug? What do you do when you're just like, I just need to be, just be.
Yeah.
And not produce,
Yeah.
right? Because you're achievement oriented, obviously. And I feel like you probably can't get away from it.
No. And sometimes that is tiring. But again, Amanda, like, it's like those thoughts of like my why, like what am I trying to do? So that kind of keeps me going, right?
Yes.
And now, okay, so when I stopped drinking, so when I was drinking, that was fun. Like, that was that was my life. Like, what are you going to do for fun? We're going to go downtown and drink and go out. Oh, what are you going to do for fun? We're going to go to the amusement park and drink and have fun. We're going to go on vacation and drink and not even remember like the vacation. So spent so much of my time doing that, that when I stopped drinking, I had to figure out, like, what is life about? Like, why are we here? What am I supposed to be doing? And then how can I have fun, right? So I kind of looked inward and started doing all of that, like, self-discovery and trying to figure out the things that I love. Before drinking, I just said, corporate life is it. I'm just going to work in a corporate setting for the rest of my career. That's what I'm going to do. But as soon as, like, literally the year that are we recording?
Yes, we are. It stopped for like 1 second and then it came back. Sorry, go ahead.
No worries. So the year that I stopped drinking, I found all of these like things that I had no clue that I was interested in. I said I would never want to run a business and own a business. I started a business. I started multiple businesses, and all of these ideas just started coming out. So all of these like passion projects and just creativity just started flowing, but it was blocked because all I could focus on was I'm in the evenings, I'm going to have some wine. I'm going to go out with my friends. On the weekends, I'm going to go out with my friends. I'm going to drink. So when I didn't have that anymore, I got to really discover who I was and what I'm interested in. I started traveling. Like, I would have never said, oh, let me go stay in Mexico City for 5 weeks. Let me go stay in Guadalajara for 4 weeks. I would have never thought of that. And then when I'm there, I just see the beauty in everything around me. Like, fun is walking around like that. Like, I guess, when I was drinking, like, the fun was like the excitement and the thrill of like drinking and like that feeling.
Yes.
Well, when I in cities that I've never been in, it's that I still get that rush. It's like, ooh, I've never been here. Like, I got to put my New Yorker cap on and make sure I'm like looking around. And then like, there's so many cool things I can discover and find and see, and so many cool people I can meet. And it's just like, that's how I have fun now, is just going out, exploring. To blow off steam, if I have a bad day at work, I don't know, I'll come in and listen to music.
Yep.
I'll cry. Like, cry. It's nothing wrong with crying. I'll cry.
Yeah. Crying?
Yeah, but
crying is good.
Yeah. Listen to music.
It's funny that you say about because for me, like before I was about to drink or go use or do whatever I was going to do, it was the anticipation. That was the fun part. It really was. It was like, I'm about to feel so much better. I'm about to feel good. I'm about to, but then, did I feel better? Yeah, maybe for 15 minutes. And then, it just turned into something else, like where I was either wanting to fight or cry or whatever. I don't know. Who knows what was going to come out that time. Right. But when I was watching your vlog and you guys were walking through the city and it was Day of the Dead and there was music and there were people and there were food vendors and there were flags everywhere, there were altars everywhere. And it was just like, I felt like I was there, and it made me feel like a little kid where you're just excited because I was like, wow, there's so much culture and activity and noise and everything is new. And you guys were asking questions and looking at that statue and you're like, oh, there's a baby right there. Like there was like a baby coming out. I was like, and then you ate buses. I was like, what's happening? But I love that idea of like exploring, and knowing that I was missing all that when I was drinking because I was so numb, I was just really numb. And if I wasn't under the influence, I was thinking about the next time I was going to be under the influence, right? And I was like a robot. I was just going through the motions day in, day out, doing the things, paying the bills, raising my kid, trying to, but that's such a cool outlook though, to think of it like that, where your way of having fun is to go explore, and also it's getting in touch with who you actually are.
Exactly. Yes. Like when I was drinking, vacation or like going out of the country, I booked my trips based on like all-inclusive resort. Like why? Because I can go out there and relax on a beach chair on the beach and drink and not have to drive anywhere. Or a cruise where that was my thing. Oh, I love going on the cruise. So you don't have to drive anywhere. Well, why? Like now that I'm sober, I think back of like, why was I thinking that? Because I don't have to drive drunk anywhere.
Right.
It wasn't just because I love driving. Like now I love driving across states, like put me in a car and just let me go. But then it was like, I cruise because I don't have to drink and drive. And like, that was just mind blowing to me. Like I was basing my vacation on that. Yeah.
And I remember too, I wouldn't even go to restaurants that didn't serve alcohol. Like that's seriously like, okay, where do we want to go? We're looking at places and there's a lot of places that didn't serve alcohol. And I was like, why would anyone ever go somewhere where you can't order a drink? I don't even understand that. Same thing with vacations and this and that. And, oh God. Okay. So there's a lot of different things I want to talk to you about, and we've covered quite a bit of it, and a lot of it's recovery focused. But I also want to talk about, you do a lot of really good work in the world, and DE&I stuff, allyship for LGBTQ. And so I don't know if you want to kind of just tell us about that and what that looks like in your life, and then also how people can. And we've heard and seen so much of this, and so much of it is performative. And like you get to the point where you aren't sure if you're helping or you're making it worse. And so a lot of people, myself included, are like, I almost feel like I should never say anything ever because I'm either going to offend someone, even though you're coming from a good place. So what are the tangible ways to, I guess, to be the best allies from your perspective for diversity and inclusion, and also the LGBTQ community plus community?
So I've done some work in DE&I in the corporate setting for the last couple of years, not in a formal position, but just on the DE&I board and things like that, right? And the ERGs. So I'm not formally educated in DE&I or anything like that. But I do have some intersecting diversities and identities. And I think that those truly do kind of shape or have shaped the way that I look at the world and my ability to kind of see, show compassion and understand people. So I'm lesbian, I'm Puerto Rican, I'm Black, I'm a woman, so several different things, right?
Right.
But I think that, when it comes to allyship, the most important, because even with those intersecting identities, like I still feel the same way that you feel, Amanda, like, should I have said that? Because some people that are Black might look at me and say, oh, she's not Black, so right. I also Puerto Rican too. Like growing up, I had those identity crises, like who am I supposed to hang out with? Like, so I think that one of the most important things that we can do to be good allies for individuals is just resist that desire to make assumptions and truly educate ourselves on those groups and those individuals. I think that's first and foremost. Listen instead of putting our own, again, assumptions and our own opinions. Listen to understand, not listen to respond. My partner tells me that all the time. But
probably one of the reasons I'm not in a relationship. I just am not good at that, I guess. Not when it's coming from a man anyway. I'm better with women typically. So that's a whole nother podcast.
Right. So we just have to really avoid our judgment, because we all have these biases inside of us that, we these images that we have, whether it be from movies or TV or maybe even personal experiences, but we can't like an entire group of individuals based on those things. So just really checking yourself at the door and resisting using anything that you've learned about another person or another group on those individuals, right? And just really learning about them before anything. And then speaking up. I saw this video this morning where these people were in a cell phone store, and this woman was saying something about like Black people need to be hung or something like that. It was crazy because they were arguing with the manager of the store who was Black. And a white woman jumped in and was like, absolutely not, and just stood up. And it was very beautiful just to be able to witness that and see it, even though I wasn't there, but just to see it on video. It was like, man, humanity does exist. Like, people are out here that are allies, and they're doing the work, and they're not just sitting behind and watching things happen. So just having that courage to be able to step up in situations is huge too. And one last thing, Amanda, you too, like you've created this platform, right? For people to share their stories, to be able to open up and share that with the world, so that people know what our experiences are as women of color, as, members of the LGBT, whatever it is, right? Like being able, putting us on this platform so that we can talk and share those things, and people can learn and understand. Right. And I thank you for that too.
Well, thank you. I'm inspired, and I've always been one of those people who I'm curious about anything that's different from my own experience. Like, that's just a natural tendency I have. I already know everything I need to know about my stuff and, white people and how we do stuff or whatever. Who cares? It's all we ever hear about, like anybody ever hears about, right? And so it's like any culture or art or music or places or food or just all of it, anything that's different, it makes me curious. It's never made me feel afraid or us versus. And so I'm so disconnected from that way of thinking that sometimes I don't even want to engage in those conversations because it's so crazy to me. And I don't understand how anyone could subscribe to paying any attention to, you know what I mean? Someone's sexual preference or this or that. It's none of your business. What does it have to do with anything? It's so weird to me that people are so obsessed with some of that stuff. It freaks me out. But I also want to be helpful where I can. And I have no problem standing up for, but I've had friends before who, you have to be really careful. And sometimes I admit it, like, I don't always know what the right thing to do is. And sometimes because of fear, we don't do anything. Yep. Because if you try to be helpful, then maybe someone thinks you're trying to be some kind of, white savior. Or if you say something about some experience, people are like, you don't know shit about that experience. You need to sit down and be quiet, right? Or other people are like, thank you so much for stepping. So it's confusing. And I admit it. I don't understand all of it and all the nuances. And I'm sure I still say and do things that are offensive. And we all have biases, like you said, but I am willing to learn. And if somebody calls me out or says, hey, that's offensive, I need to say, I am so sorry. I didn't know, and that will never happen again. Mm-hmm. But it's scary because you want to do the right thing, but you're afraid that you're actually, making it worse. So
but Amanda, that's one thing that the many things that I love about you is like you have always, and that's what drew me to you as well, is that you've always been that person. And I appreciate it too. When managers wouldn't even say a word like, hey, how are you doing after certain events that have happened in our country, you were always there. I would get a message from you, even when we weren't working together, to check up on me. And I appreciate that. And I am grateful for it. But you're going to have those people that are ignorant. I'm just going to say it, and see anything that you do, no matter if it's great or magnificent, they're gonna have a problem with it because you're doing it.
Right.
But that shouldn't, that those are things that you can't, it's easier said than done, but you just can't take those things to heart, and
right.
You have to chuck it up to their ignorance.
Well, and the older I get and the, wiser, I would hope. And like you said, being in recovery, being open, my channel is clear. My eyes are open. I'm awake. I'm alive. I'm like receiving all these, that's a beautiful place to be. But it also, you at some point, you just don't give a shit anymore what people think, because you know what? I know what I am doing, and I know it's right for me. And I know what I am called to do certain things, and I trust my intuition. And so when I was younger, I felt like I needed to apologize or explain or this and that. And I just don't anymore. I don't care. Like, this is what I'm doing. And if you don't like it, don't follow me or don't talk to, who cares? Like, go do your own thing. I release you in love, but it's scary too, because, you really want to be part of the solution instead of part of the problem. So I think that's a big part of it. And my next question is, how has, if at all, I don't know, and this may be one of those questions that like I shouldn't ask. Again, I don't know. And if so, tell me. But how has race and gender and your sexuality, how have those things shaped or influenced your experience as a person, professionally, just kind of in the different areas of your life?
Again, I think so. Again, there's a lot of, there's this intersection, right, of all of these different identities. And what I've known ever since I started working was that I was always going to have to fight a bit harder. I was going to have to put on, as they say, or code switch in order to, get through and climb the ranks and do all these different things within my career. So, but now to your point too, I've gained some wisdom, and I'm like, actually, I don't.
Yeah.
I don't have to do that. Like, I am me, and my work, speaks for itself. But I think those, early on, they just kind of made me fight harder in life, fight harder to get to where I want to be.
Yeah.
And but now again, I'm proud of who I am. I'm proud of my heritage. I'm proud of my community and the work that we're doing, advancing for these communities. So that's it.
I love that. That makes me feel so happy. And I think, like I said, from the moment I met you, I just felt something. I just knew something about you. And it was weird because it was on a weird, I'm going to get a little woo-woo, but it felt like on a soul level, I just knew, I was like, this lady has been through some stuff, and I don't know anything about her yet personally, but you can just tell. And only when you've walked through a million different fires and come out on the other side unscathed, not only unscathed, but actually stronger, do you have that type of regal, quiet confidence that goes on, but also you're true to who you actually are. You know what I mean? And there were times where you were really polite on work calls and stuff, where I didn't think that it warranted a politeness. I thought certain people needed to be told exactly what the hell was going on or whatever, and of course, and you're just over there like and I was like, how do you do that? But it's because you've been conditioned to have to always be so perfect and work so hard,
You hit the nail right on the head. But what's crazy, Amanda, another part of this whole story is that I did mention that I was once married, and we were like the first lesbian couple to like have a big, huge wedding out of like our big friend group, like out of our community. Orlando. So it was this big deal. And we had been together 5 years, and like we were putting on, like we didn't really like each other. We were just putting on because I felt like it was the thing we were supposed to do. Like 5 years, you're supposed to get married. So we were the perfect couple in everyone's eyes. And there was just so much turmoil and stuff going on. Like her needs weren't met. Mine weren't either. It was just a mess. So we got married in March. And in like October, November, I found out that she was cheating on me. She had an affair with someone at work. So like this whole image and facade that we had created was crumbling because we broke up. We were getting a divorce. And the whole community knew too, like within the same year, all this happened. So at that point, I was like devastated. I was at the point where I was like thinking bad thoughts, like really bad thoughts about myself and all this. And when I came out of that, like that moment told me, you know what, you can do anything. Like you can do anything and you can recover from anything that happens in life. So that's how I look at everything. So when you say like, oh, you're so positive and all that, because of that, it was really because of that situation in my life, is because like things don't matter. Like that whole situation, it happened. But I came out and I was happy. Like life goes on. Yes. So when we have these bad situations that come up in life, they're blips. Like they're little, very small moments of our 100 years, God willing, that we can live on this earth. They are such small moments. So if we focus all of our time on these things that are not good, we will never be able to focus on changing them, making them better, or just like looking at them in a different way so that we can innovate, we can create positive change, right?
Yeah.
So when in meetings like that, I was like, you know what? One, it was, I felt like if I agree, like I'm supposed to agree, but also I'm here to work. This isn't life. I'm here to work. Let's get along. Let's not focus on that. Let's move on and look at what we can do to.
It's maturity. It's maturity is what it is. Like, right. You can look at the situation and be like, okay, whatever. I'm here to do a job, period. And I think, I have this feeling of like, if something isn't fair, it's not being done right, like it's my job to fix it. It's just like, it's immaturity. That's that. Like, and I have that. I'm like firstborn. I'm an Aquarius. I don't know. I think it's just part of my, but to your point, if you can take sometimes looking back at the biggest, hardest failures, whether it was my divorce or like different things that have happened in my life, when I thought my life was over and that I would absolutely never recover, I realized it was just a season, right? And those are the things that made us better and made us stronger. And it's, it's easy to say after you're on the other side of it, but like when you're in it, it's hard. It's just hard to push through. But it's always carrying some type of lesson. And we don't want to manifest more of that. And if we stay stuck in that, then we are attracting more of that same crap right back into our lives, because we're going to learn that lesson as many times as we need to. The universe will just keep sending it around in a different person. That's why I've been married and divorced twice. It's just like, let's just keep doing this over and over again. That's great. I love your perspective though on understanding and looking back and saying that, this facade and understanding, because we are always having to look at our motives, right? Like, what are my motives? And that's why I don't apologize or feel, the need to do any of that anymore, because I know my motives. I know who I am. I know what I'm doing. And I know that I'm coming from a good place. Now, if I check my motives and they're not coming from a good place, I have to know that karmically, that's not going to work out for me. And so it's not worth it, right? It's not worth doing it. But when I was younger, I think I didn't understand all of that. And so one of the questions I have for you, and this may be too personal, I hope not, but like, I just noticed that you're just really close and like supportive of your brother. And I see it on LinkedIn all the time. And like, I know you have a military family and there's a lot, it's like your parents, I think, right? Too. And okay, yes. So I've seen all of that. And I'm always like, this is so sweet because I love my brothers too. And like, we just lost my dad. And so we have bonds, but we also have a lot of, issues where we maybe don't agree and we're siblings. And so there's that side of it. But what is that about? Like what does he mean in your life? And what do you mean in his? And kind of tell me about that relationship.
Yeah. So we had those sibling feuds when we were kids. Like we did. I mean, the worst sibling feud that you can think of as children is what we had. He like used to fart on me and like he used to use the Martin jokes on me and to tell me my breath smelled like boiled bologna. Like he was so mean to me. And so as we got older and we became adults, we realized that like we're all we got. Like it's just him and I. Yeah. It's our parents. We're not super close with cousins, like aunts and uncles. We're not like really close with that part of the family. So when our parents are dead and gone, it's really just us and his kids now and his family. So I don't know, I think we maybe kind of like use that as like our bond because we also, I don't know if you knew this, but he's also sober.
I don't think I knew that. I just know that he's very motivational and driven and he's like positive. And so I'm like, okay, this is obviously a family thing traits that they have over there. Like, because it's very similar and you were either raised in that environment or your tenacity comes from like things you've experienced together, or a combination of different stuff, but it's like, or maybe military for who knows? I don't know. That's why I want to understand, like, where does that come from?
Yeah. So
I did not know he was sober. I didn't know that.
Yep. He's got a story too. So maybe you can do your podcast as well. But he's been sober for, I think, like 8 years now, 7 years. So, So, we went through some stuff and throughout our childhood and both of us, reached that point where we were like, we can't do this. Like this is not the life we want for our family. So we bond through that too. But he's just such an inspiration to me. Like he tried to go to college and then it just didn't work out for him. So he joined the military. That was a whirlwind of a mess too, until he had his awakening and he woke up. And ever since then, he has just been like laser focused on reaching, setting and achieving his goals. Yeah. And I found that just so admirable because he does not miss. Like he's just incredible. Anything that he sets for himself, he's going to achieve it and keep going.
But you're the same way. You're the exact same way. And it's just so weird because you guys are so similar. And when I read some of his posts and stuff on LinkedIn or like whatever links and things that he's putting out there, I like want to go do push-ups and like write a book or something. Yeah. I feel like, I'm like, oh my God, I want to go do something. It's very motivational and it's very empowering, but that's how you are too, And he's more of like a coach type of person that makes you like, he's like that. And you're kind of the person who just sort of embodies like it already happened. I already have done it and I've arrived there and so it's like a different, it manifests differently for you guys, I guess, in terms of like how it is put out into the world. Mm-hmm. But it's so similar and you guys are so supportive of each other and so similar. But I was like, did they have like parents or a grandma or somebody who kind of instilled this very, because it's like a foundational belief in self, confidence, class, that regal thing I was talking about. It's just sort of this feeling. I don't know how to explain it other than that. Cause I'm not usually impressed by people. That sounds rude, but like, I don't know, whatever. And when I met you, it was like something about her. And then your brother, he seems very similar in that way, where it's like, you're just trying to bring good into the world.
Well, thank you. I appreciate it. I'm going to share that. Well, I'm going to share this recording with him too. But, our parents, they just always, so my dad graduated high school, went to the military. My mom graduated high school, went to the military. My dad didn't go to college. My mom didn't go to college until after I graduated college. So maybe she was 50 something when she went to college.
Wow.
But they always like instilled in us like this vision that we just held on to, that we could do and accomplish anything that we wanted to or that we put our mind to.
Yeah.
And even though they didn't, accomplish the things that they wanted to accomplish in their lives, they always pushed us and motivated us to do whatever we want. They gave us kind of free range. Like you be who you are, you explore, experience things. We weren't like tied up in the house all summer long. They let us go out and they let me ride my skates 5 blocks down in the South Bronx, like they just let us explore and be who we were. And then just always motivated us and encouraged us to, when we finished high school, to just go out and do what we wanted to do in life and be good at it. So I think that, that's a big part of us believing in ourselves, because our parents always believed in us. There was no point ever in our life where our parents like had anything negative to say about anything that we wanted to do or try to do in life. They were always encouraging us, even if it was probably the most outlandish, craziest thing you could ever think of. Go for it, try it out. We're here to support you through it. So
that's amazing. That is amazing, because a lot of parents, aren't, and I've made those mistakes too with my daughter, of like, you're scared and you have all this fear that something's going to happen to them, or somebody's going to be mean to them, or don't take a chance because you could get hurt. And like, you have all your own fear that you're projecting, but also you want them to be safe and secure and successful, whatever that means to you. And guess what? Mm-hmm. Your life is not their life. And you have to be healthy enough to have that separation and say, yes, I want you to have a boring corporate job that you hate, but you're going to make a lot of money and you're going to have a good insurance and your mortgage, is going to be paid off or whatever. And like, it's funny because my daughter is like, yeah, people don't do that anymore. That's not what we do. Right. But it's scary as a parent so I love when I hear people talk about their parents just saying like, yeah, go nuts, be yourself, explore, make mistakes, get hurt, like all those things that we have to have as human beings. Because if you go around clearing the path with a machete for your kid their whole life, and then they get out in the world, they get eaten alive, that's no good. So I love that. But it really shows in you and your brother that you're just like free to be who you are and to, express yourself. But not only that, to then turn it around and use it to help other people. Like, that's the stuff that most people don't take, right? They figure out their own, and then that's where they are. But you guys both have that tendency and that desire to like want to pay it forward and take all the tools that you've learned and all the pitfalls and all the different things and say, hey man, I have a story to share because I want to help people, and that's awesome.
Yes. I just told somebody the other day that I had she was like, oh, what do you do? Because I was like, I'm a serial entrepreneur, but not really, because I'm not really making money off of a lot of these ventures, but projects. But I was like, yeah, I've got this Instagram page on like financial wellness and etc. And she's like, oh, like, what do you do? Are you doing like credit repair and everything? And I'm like, no, I'm actually just sharing the stuff that I do that worked or that didn't work, so that other people don't make these mistakes, or so that they can, learn and try to get to that point of financial freedom that many of us, long for and hope for in life. So it's just like, I just love, like, I've been through a lot. I'm only 37 now. I've been through a lot in this lifetime. Many, many, many highs, many lows, many, many lows. And I think that if I can just share just a part of my story or what I'm doing, I can just help another person. Like the travel vlogging, it's fun. But I'm really doing that because I want other women, especially women of color, to know that you can leave this country, go to another country, and just live freely. Like go do it for a couple of weeks, 4 weeks, whatever. If you, especially if you're working remotely,
Yeah.
just go do it. You'll be fine. Just take that risk and just do it. Have fun. When our time is supposed to come to an end, it will come to an end.
Yes.
We can't live life always wondering, well, what if I get over there and I die? No, just go and have fun.
But it's crazy too, because sometimes people just need to see someone else doing the thing they want to do to be like, holy crap, I'm doing it, because they did it and they're fine. And that's what it is, right? Is like understanding if you can't think about doing it, it's not going to happen unless you just actually go do it. And like I've told you that my pop passed away in late September. He had just turned 66. He was about to retire, and he was gonna go do all the things, right? He was gonna go do all of those things that he wanted to do, and he had worked his ass off for decades and done all the right things and saved and whatever. And then guess what? The time is up. And and so like, to me, that was so devastating, but also so eye-opening. And not to say he didn't have fun and take trips and have a wonderful time with his family. He had a great life. He had a wonderful life. So that's not what I'm saying, but it's like, what are we waiting for? Right? It's like Oprah said back in the day, get out the good candles, like use the good dishes, like do it now. Stop waiting for the special occasion, because we just don't know. And I think when you're talking about all that, it's the vlog, which I'm going to put that in the description in the show notes, but the travel guides and then the financial literacy. That was one of my questions, is like talking about your passions around travel and financial wellness, financial literacy, because some of that stuff is way over people's heads. If you didn't grow up, we don't learn this stuff in school. Maybe our parents didn't teach us how to balance a checkbook or whatever. And so sometimes you just need a regular person to be like, hey, look, here's what I did. So where's this passion around financial wellness and travel?
Yeah. So again, when I stopped drinking, all this goes back to like when I stopped drinking, because literally goals, what were goals? Like I didn't have goals when I was drinking. The goal was to go out and have fun and drink.
Exactly. And then do it again.
So like after that, when I got to really like, okay, sit down and think about what I enjoy doing, I realized that, okay, one thing I do enjoy doing, well, let me back up a little. We didn't grow up with a ton of money. We lived in the South Bronx in a 2-bedroom apartment. It started off all four of us was in a 1-bedroom apartment. A couple years after that, we lived in a 2-bedroom apartment, all four of us. I lived in the living room. I had a bed in the living room. My brother had the room, and my parents had their room. And it was not the best conditions. So I knew that like I never wanted to be in that place, like as an adult, or I never wanted my children to be in that place. My parents did the best that they could for what they had. But I just knew that I didn't have to do that and be back in that place. So I really started working on, okay, now that I've got this more time now and I can really see clearly because I don't have all these other distractions like this stuff with drinking, what am I going to start doing to plan for now and for the future so that I can live comfortably and continue to live comfortably? So I really started working on my finances, making sure that I didn't have anything on my credit. I had $85,000 in student loans. Yeah. Yeah. That I've since paid off because I was able to sit down and really just focus on like getting myself together. But what I started to realize is that, yeah, I'm getting myself together, but the people around me were still in these places that like they could be doing better. Like, in observation, you see your friends and you're like, you know what, you could make some different decisions and you'd be like living comfortably. So I was like, maybe I should just put everything that I'm doing, everything that's like helped me and that I've done, like even got into like crypto and stuff like that. Let me just put that into like an ebook and get it out there. And I had it on my website for free because I just wanted people to know, like, you don't have to live this way. Like you don't have to be in these positions. So that was like the financial literacy piece is like, I don't want the people around me struggling. I don't want anyone struggling. Like we don't have to struggle. There are ways that we can work through it and to overcome those situations. There may be times where we struggle, but we should not live a lifetime of struggling. Like you just said, like life is to be lived. You don't want to get to 60 and then figure out that I'm still struggling and I still can't do the things that I want to do.
Right.
So then the second part, the travel piece, that just came with like just figuring out a love. Like I knew I loved traveling, but again, I was traveling to drink. But I love traveling and I like going to museums and exploring. And then I said, you know what? If I could do this on my own, I'm sure there's somebody else that's probably thinking about doing it, but they're so scared to do it. Let me show them my experience so they can feel more comfortable. Right. They can see how fun it is to just go out on your own, travel to a different country on your own and just enjoy it and have fun. So that's how those two things were birthed.
That's awesome. Because too, like when I got sober and stopped doing all my shenanigans, I was like, wow, there's a lot of money in my account.
Yes.
It's like, oh, I didn't realize I was spending that much on all of this nonsense. I mean, but also you start to realize, like you were saying, it's almost like you get introduced to yourself for the first time ever. And I remember some of the exercises I had to do of trying to recall what I had enjoyed as a child. And it was always being in my treehouse and reading books and being in the woods. And, that's what makes me happy now. I love going on the trails with my dogs and doing certain things and reading, but also newer things and more kind of scarier things like you're talking about, like travel or having to, have some discipline and make some changes financially so that I can have the type of stability when I'm older, but also so I can go take a trip now if I want to and not have to break the bank, Mm-hmm. And so, but those are the things that a lot of times not everybody has resources to have a CPA and go take this expensive class and do this and read this book. It's more like, just give me the quick and dirty of like you're talking about the ebook and you just wanted to help people. And I think I love that. And I love the vlog too. I'm still working my way through the videos, but like after the bug eating thing, I was just like, I cannot believe she did that. Because you were like, listen, a note about me. I hate bugs. I hate all the bugs. And then
I ate grasshoppers. Like I still can't believe I did it. But Amanda, again, like life is about overcoming, right? Overcoming things that are blocking us. And I'm not saying like eating bugs was blocking us, but it was a fear. It was telling me like you can overcome a fear that you might have. Right. You can take risks. And I took a risk by eating those bugs and I did it. And that was another thing. I was fine. That's another thing that's like, hey, I can overcome. I can get through these fears that I have. So it was symbolic and it wasn't just about the bugs for me. It was like, I think I said it afterwards. I was like, I overcame a fear. yeah, it was a pivotal moment of like understanding, but because I think too, that a lot of times the fear of something is so much worse than just doing the thing. And once you do it enough times, you're like, what was my big thing about that? Like I'm not eating. Yeah. Doing it. You're like, I'm good. Checked it off the list. We're good. Okay. I know we're getting to the end. And I think I have two, and I'm just going to like stick them kind of together because I don't want to take up all day long for you. But like having worked with you, I have seen your like work ethic and your kind of unflappable nature. And I am very flappable. Okay. Like, I don't know what it is, but it's just, I do so much work to like try to stay on the beam. You have no idea. Like, and so when I see people who seem to just kind of do it effortlessly, and you've already sort of alluded to this, you always go back to your why. Why am I doing this? Why does all this matter to me? Ultimately, and it's to support yourself and your family and that, but who modeled that tenacity for you? I guess like where did that come from to where your work ethic is crazy? Like it's I haven't really seen that in very many people. Do you know what I mean? Yeah. It goes back to that why.
Yeah.
It goes back to why I'm doing this and what then the goals that I have for the now
Yeah.
and for the future. You know, Amanda, I feel like I am standing on the shoulders of giants. Like I am really standing on my ancestors' shoulders, and I'm doing. I want to make them proud. I'm only what 3 generations removed from slavery. Like my great grandmother worked on the cotton fields, but she didn't work on the cotton fields to bring the money back to a house that was miles away from the cotton fields. She worked on the cotton field to live on the cotton field, to live in a house on the cotton field. And my grandmother worked on the cotton field so that she had money to go to the football games at high school. Like that's how close that is to me. So when I think about work and when I think about like making sure that I'm making them proud, that I'm able to retire my mom is still working. She's still working at on the phones like as a customer service agent. Like I don't, man, like our our ancestors went through so much, and like you shouldn't be here. You shouldn't have to do that. So, you know, I think about those things, and that's what just keeps me kind of fighting forward and getting the work and doing the things that I have to do to set myself up now, and so I can be a bit comfortable now, but then also, you know, in the future, I have to worry about that and have my parents not have to worry about anything as well. They're still worrying about now.
Yeah. And it's funny that you say that because I don't know if you ever watched that show, Finding Your Roots on PBS, but they go dig deep into people's ancestry. I mean, like way back. And people's reaction is always like, whoa, I have a new understanding and a new respect for myself, knowing now what I came from. Like the stuff that people went through, and also the miracle that we even made it, that anybody survived any of that stuff that happened back in the day, but also the tenacity and the brilliance and all that stuff that you come from, you know, and knowing, like you just said, that that's your driving force is to make people proud, you know, your ancestors living and not living, right? Like that's part of your legacy. And I just think that most people are so, I don't know, people are just so superficial now, or maybe like worried about all these temporal things instead of these like big existential things like, oh, ancestry, legacy, you know, and that. So I think that's one of the things that's always stood out about you to me is that you're just on a different plane. You're like, you're thinking about other stuff, you know, elevated things that are not, especially, I mean, I don't want to say people your age, like I'm like that. I mean, I am kind of a lot older than you, but I think I just turned 47, but like, I know a lot of 37-year-olds, and this really isn't the type of conversation I have with them typically. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, no, I definitely.
You're like, yeah, preaching to the choir.
Okay. But I was once there, right? I mean, I didn't come to this realization. I've only been sober for 5 years.
Right.
So 32, just 5 years ago, my thought process, just the way that I looked at life was completely different. And all of these events that have happened, when I hit 30, all these things just started happening, like all this craziness, right?
Yeah.
And I just, wisdom just came from that. I'm still learning, right? I'm still make bad decisions from time to time, but I know how to deal with them, when when things do happen. And, it's just, I don't know, just gotta.
It's crazy to me though. Yeah. The 5 years, just in 5 years, the exponential, the accelerated nature, right? It's almost like you have tons of time to make up for almost or something where it's compounded and it grows and gets better and bigger. And my last question is really kind of like, what's next? What is success? What's on the horizon? I mean, I have to always know what's going on with you because it's exciting, So kind of like what's on the horizon for you? What's next? What does success mean to you?
Yeah. So success is growth to me. Yeah. Anytime I experienced some sort of growth today. Today was successful. I learned from you. I learned from your experiences. I learned from this experience on this podcast. This was a success. So anything small, anything big that has to do with my growth is it's a success. I'm always challenging myself.
Yeah.
I'm always trying to do something like I'm testing the boundaries all the time.
Yes.
And seeing what I could actually accomplish in this lifetime. To your point earlier, like we don't know when our time is. So I would never want to leave this earth having not given it my all in any and everything that I do. So right. These 5 years have been jam packed of like just doing stuff, but it hasn't been tiring. It's fun. It's a lot of fun. We're exploring and experiencing. So it's not the material things. I house hack. Like I was renting out my basement. I had people living here with me. Like to achieve next level success, right?
Yeah.
Making those sacrifices. So that was, for me, that's a success.
Yes.
It's just anything small, large, big that gives a little drop to my growth bucket is success for me.
I love that. That is such a good way to look at things, because growth, it doesn't matter how small it is or how incremental or how massive it is. And even when it really sucks, even when it's something horrible or painful, it's still growth. Like it is still growth. And so if growth is success, then as long as you're learning something and getting better day to day, or like you're saying, you have goals financially. And so you're going to do what it takes to make those goals happen. Like how does somebody pay off $80,000 of student debt? How do you do this? How do you do that? Well, guess what? It's going to take sacrifice. It's going to take growth and maturity. And I think a lot of people talk a big game, but when it gets down to the brass tacks of what you're going to actually have to do to make that happen, they're like, oh, that sounds terrible.
Yes.
That's hard, right? And you have to be consistent. And that's the difference, right? You've got that grit about you, and that not only there's no challenge that you can't overcome, but also you're like seeking out challenge, right? You don't wait for it to come knock at your door and be like, oh, okay, I guess I need to work on blah, blah, blah. You're like looking for that growth because you're hungry for growth. And that's, I think that's why one of the many reasons you're so inspiring to me is that you're never stagnant, and it makes people who are around you want to be better. Like it makes you feel a little bit like I need to do something with my life.
No.
In a good way, in a healthy way, in a motivating way, because when you're doing something that you love, it doesn't feel like work. And that's the whole point, right? Like if you are energized by it and inspired by it, and then you're helping to inspire other people, obviously like that's your purpose. But it's good to be around people who challenge us and who make us, want to really figure out how we can grow. And like you said, push boundaries and push the envelope and not get too comfortable and complacent. Because it's way too easy in today's world. Like it's real easy to settle into stuff and just get extremely comfortable. And I start feeling depressed, detached. I want to isolate. That's when I know that I'm not feeding that creative part of myself or whatever that, because you can have all the money in the house and the things and all that. And it's like, you still feel hollow unless you're doing what you're meant to be doing,
Yeah.
Good people. Hey, do you want to be on the show? Please send us an email at ihave12questions@gmail.com, and 12 is the number 12. And we will look it over and reach out to you and set up a time to do your interview. We can't wait to read your emails and hear from you and meet you. Thanks.
That's the key, is you have to be doing what you're meant to, your purpose in life.
Yes.
Even if your purpose is not bringing you in money, and you're working 40, 50 hours a week, you still have to find time to do whatever that purpose is.
Yes.
That purpose work, got to do that, because that's what's going to keep you going and feeling like you're growing and you're getting, closer to your goal in life, which is fulfilling that purpose.
There's this, I think it's called The Other Westmore, but it's a book, and it's called The Work. And anyway, he's talking about Oprah. I think it's not from Super Soul, but she asked him, how do we know what our purpose is? How do you know? Because so many people, that's what we're all asking. What am I here for? Why am I here? What's my purpose? And meanwhile, we have to pay bills and do all this stuff and raise kids and whatever. So that's an easy excuse, right? Like, oh yeah, I wish I could go do photography, but like, I don't have time for that. And he basically said, whatever you would do, whatever you're going to do, no matter what.
Mm-hmm.
So if you have a 60-hour week and your work week and you're raising kids and you're trying, whatever, what is that thing that you're going to do no matter what? You're going to spend nights and weekends. You're going to spend your own money to do it. You don't care if it brings in income. You don't care if anyone's paying attention. Like, you're going to do that thing. Whatever that thing is, that's your purpose. And I was like, whoa.
I love that.
Yeah.
Yeah. I love that.
And that's what it reminds me of what you're talking about, Yes, we have to be practical.
Mm-hmm.
We have to be practical.
I love it.
But also, yeah, it was cool. I love those little one-liners where you're like, ooh, yeah. Or, you would do it for free. Like, you love it so much, or you think it's so important to put out into the world that you would do it for free. Like you're saying, you put out your ebook for free, and, I spend money to put out this podcast. I'm not making money on this. This is just because I want to share these stories with the world,
Watch that. Watch those words. Yet.
Yes. See what I mean? Well, I appreciate you so much. This was so awesome.
Likewise. Thank you so much for having me on. I appreciate it. This was fun.
I feel very inspired. Thank you.